This episode of AEW Dynamite kicks off with Miro against Trent Beretta. In about that had good heat and decent wrestling, Miro defeats Trent in 15 minutes 10 seconds by pinfall after a bullplex. It is a 58 rated segment, a good way to get things started with this big episode of AEW Dynamite. We are just 2 weeks or so away from Blood and Guts. Miro, our TNT champion. After the match, Miro continues to hold Trent in the game over. Trent has passed out at this point. Referee Paul Turner can't do anything about it. Kip Sabian watches on, loving every minute. Cody Rhodes has seen enough and comes out the back dressed smartly, as he usually does. He steps into the ring. This gets Miro's attention as he finally peels himself off Trent. Cody is trying to be professional about this situation, but Kip is getting in his face as Miro stands stock still, staring him down. Kip then shoves Cody as he and Miro leave the ring with Cody watching on. So we get a 70 for this, and maybe the start of something new, something different between Cody Rhodes, Kip Sabian, and Miro. We then head to the commentary table. Welcome everyone to AEW Dynamite tonight. The World Championship title Eliminator tournament continues. I'm certainly looking forward to the MJF Wardlow match. Wardlow has been out of contract with MJF for a few weeks now without MJF even knowing. Now Wardlow is determined to go it alone. Gents, what about the huge match later tonight between Pentagon and Rey Fenix of Death Triangle? Penta was clearly upset last week after losing the tag team titles and seemed to be putting most of the blame on Fenix. Pac wants him to sort it out in the ring tonight, as if Pac doesn't have enough to think about as he steps in the ring also tonight as part of the Eliminator tournament as he faces the Murder Hawk Monster Lance Archer. And speaking of tag teams, FTR are in action, and that's not all tonight. Dr. Britt Baker returns with the debut of her waiting room as she interviews Tessa Blanchard, who has officially arrived here in AEW. So let's get on with tonight's show. So just a quick roundup then of all things you can expect. Pac, Lance Archer collide in the World Title Eliminator Tournament, and so does MJF and Wardlow, who advances to the semi-finals. Our new tag team champions, FTR, are in action later tonight, and Dr. Britt Baker debuts her waiting room. Should be interested in that. And the big one, the main event tonight, Pentagon Jr. against Rey Fenix. Kenny Omega is seen walking backstage, not dressed to compete. As he turns a corner, he bumps straight into CM Punk, Doc Gallows, and Carl Anderson. Hey, look who it is. A member of the Elite, the Cleaner, Kenny Omega. How's the head, huh, Ken? How did it feel last week being on the receiving end of a best-in-the-world GTS? Gallows and Anderson just stand there, expressionless. CM Punk gets a little closer to Omega. Then Jon Moxley walks into shot with his AEW title over his shoulder and stands next to Omega. They stare down, culture shock for a moment before they're interrupted by Brody King, who attacks Mox and Kenny from behind. Kicks and punches are thrown. Punk directs Gallows and Anderson to join in the assault, and they do, but unwillingly. Omega and Mox hold up their own as it's 2 against 3 with Punk watching on. Then Matt Jackson and Nick Jackson run in to even things up. Fists are flying. Punk gets involved now as all 8 men continue to brawl elsewhere in the back. It's a huge 79 segment. Everyone performing really well in this segment as well. What a clash with Culture Shock up against the current AEW World Champion Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega. There's some big egos there, maybe some fantasy matches as well to take place somewhere down the line as we head into our next match of the evening. And it is part of the World Championship title eliminator tournament between Pac and Lance Archer. And it is Pac that defeats Archer once again. Remember, he defeated Archer in the TNT Championship tournament at the start of this series. And now he's done exactly the same here, thanks to a distraction from Jeff Hardy. Seems like things aren't over between the Hardys and Lance Archer, because after the match, Pac makes his way quickly to the back after advancing in the tournament. Lance Archer is pissed though at both Jeff and Matt Hardy, who watch on from the outside. Both have steel chairs. Jeff doesn't look in the best of health after taking that huge bump from the top of the steel cage back at Revolution, but he can be heard saying, "I'm still standing." Matt and Jeff slowly climb up upon the ring apron on both sides, closing in on Archer. Matt makes the first move, but has his chair swiped away by Archer. Jeff comes in and slams his chair against Archer's back. Doesn't have any effect though. Then Matt comes in again. This time it does affect Archer. Both Hardys relentless. Over and over, chair shot to chair shot on Archer until he rolls out the ring. Jeff grabs a mic. "This ain't over, Lance. Blood and guts. He's just 2 weeks away. How about we finish this once and for all? Just you and me. Last man standing." And Lance Archer can be heard saying, "I accept," as he storms off. So, the first match made for the Blood and Guts pay-per-view coming up in just a couple of weeks' time. It will be Lance Archer and Jeff Hardy in that last man standing match. Up next, we see Sammy Guevara walking into the Inner Circle locker room on crutches after the attack last week, which ruled him out of the Eliminator tournament. He's flanked by both Santana and Ortiz, and Jericho is sat there and he says, "Thank God, Sammy. I've been worried sick. How's the leg looking? When are you cleared to compete? I should be back to full health just in time for Double or Nothing." "That's not too bad, just a few weeks." "Sorry you couldn't make it past Omega last week, Chris. Maybe with that out of the way, we can find out who did this to me." "Yeah, maybe. I do have to take this call right now, though, so maybe you, Santana and Ortiz, can make a start." Jericho ups and leaves with his phone, and Sammy looks at both Santana and Ortiz. Something doesn't seem right here between the Inner Circle. Something fishy going on here with Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara, and I'm sure that'll all play out in the weeks to come. Up next, it's the waiting room, as Dr. Britt Baker makes her way out to a forced applause, as she says, thank you, you're all too kind." Now, before we go any further, I just want to quickly say that my title match at Revolution was a farce. Tony Storm didn't deserve to win, you all saw. I'm not going to dwell on it though. Instead, I'm going to continue working my ass off, something she knows very little about. I will step in the ring again next week as I look to climb back to the top. Now on to today. My guest at this time, please welcome Tessa Blanchard. Tessa walks out with a swagger as Britt says, "Tessa, welcome to AEW. How did it feel last week sliding into that ring and throwing out the garbage?" And she replies, "Felt great, and it's just the start." Britt continues, "We also noticed that you squared up to Tony Storm in the process, maybe with the intentions of wanting that title? That's what we're all here for, right?" Britt seems a little put off by that. She replies, Right. Let me tell you something, though." We're just going to quickly roll into the next segment as it continues on. She says, "You need to get in line. Don't think you can just show up here and shove your weight around. If anyone is up next for a title match, or I should say rematch, it's me." Nyla Rose walks onto the set, imposing as ever. She looks at Britt Baker and says, "We have some unfinished business." Baker drops her mic and begins to leave her waiting room, calling for security, and Nyla follows, leaving Tessa alone. Tony Storm then walks in and grabs a mic and says, "Congrats on becoming All Elite." Tessa turns away, smirks at the camera, then gets in Storm's face and says, "I'm going to face you for that title, and when I do, I will beat you. Not right now, but I will." Tessa throws the mic down and walks away, bringing the debut of the waiting room to a close. So you can certainly expect to see more of the waiting room in the coming weeks, or throughout this series I should say. As up next, the new World Tag Team Champions Dax and Cash are in action next. They are accompanied to the ring by Hangman Adam Page, all three who were attacked last week by the Private Party. As they step in the ring, the camera focuses on the Private Party in their private box up in the stands. All four members, ACH, Will Hobbs, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn, are sat drinking alcohol beverages surrounded by pretty ladies, and with smirks on their faces, living the high life. We get a 59 for this. You can certainly expect to see more of this Private Party, private box over the coming weeks. Well, could last for quite some time actually. And this match, FTR in action against the debutantes Top Flight. That is Dante and Darius, who we actually see in real life now. Great young team, up and coming, so much potential. But of course it is FTR that go over it in this match after 11 minutes 41. Cash Wheeler getting the win. Dante was the wheeling, but saying that, looking at their in-ring performances, not too bad at all. The match was poorly placed though, which is a bit disappointing, but it got 59. It was a decent match as it says. Question now is how we build up Top Flight. Can they become maybe potential tag team champions in the future? After their match, Hangman Page steps into the ring with Dax and Cash. Dax calls for a mic and then looks up at Private Party's private box and says, "You boys picked the wrong men to piss off last week. What you did? Consider that an act of war." He drops the mic, then quickly says something to Cash and Hangman. All three exit the ring. They jump the fan barricade and proceed to walk towards the Private Party private box. They don't get any further though, as walking down the steps from the box is a line of security. ACH, Will Hobbs, Isaiah and Mark Quinn remain seated drinking their cocktails as the three are escorted away from the Private Party private box. So it looks like the three aren't going to be able to be getting their hands on the Private Party anytime soon, only when it suits them, meaning the Private Party. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm really looking forward to where this story can go. I think they're going to be one of the better factions in this series in, I don't know, maybe towards the end of the year when we finally get there. A quick promo plays, hyping Blood and Guts, which will feature the debut of two rings side by side surrounded by a solid steel cage. I think that's what AEW were planning on doing in real life with Blood and Guts, more like a War Games type sort of match. So that's what we're aiming for here in this save also, although I'm not sure if you can do that on TEW with two rings. I'll have to have a look, but it will be the bloodiest night in AEW. Don't miss it. In about that had good heat and decent wrestling, MJF defeats Wardlow in 14 minutes 39 by submission with a Fujiwara armbar after blatantly cheating. My thoughts here were that MJF was using his Dynamite diamond ring, which was previously stuffed down his trunks before the match. And towards the end, MJF distracting the ref, maybe taking off the turnbuckle pads, the referee trying to put it back on. MJF takes out the Dynamite diamond ring, smacks Wardlow over the skull with it, and then locks in the Fujiwara armbar to make it look like it's all above board. It's all fair game for MJF, and he picks up the win with a 68 rated match. After picking up the win, after the Dynamite diamond ring that he'd stuffed in his trunks, MJF makes his way up the ramp with arm aloft. Wardlow is in the ring as he comes around. He looks pissed. He starts kicking the bottom rope, then the bottom turnbuckle out of spite. He makes his way to the outside, grabs a few chairs from the timekeeper's area and starts throwing them around. He grabs one and smashes it against the ring post, folding the chair in half. MJF watches on, but Wardlow notices and begins to walk after him. MJF races off. So this is not over between these two. Not just yet. Anyway, I do plan to have the semi-finals of the World Title Eliminator Tournament after Blood and Guts. So there could be something at Blood and Guts between them two. We'll have to wait and see. Before the next main event between Penta and Phoenix, we quickly catch up with the huge brawl going on between Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley and CM Punk and Brody King. All four men have somehow managed to make it into the parking lot. Mox gets thrown into a car windscreen by Brody King, and CM Punk and Omega are trading fists close by. It's a match we never thought we'd see, and we could potentially be seeing it in a matter of weeks. Punk against Omega could be one of the matches of the series so far. Death Triangle are seen just before they make their entrances for the main event. Pac, who won earlier in the evening against Lance Archer, is there. He's stood in between both Penta and Phoenix, who stare each other down. He says, "Remember, you two, this is a one-time thing. You two blow off that steam, get out your systems and put it behind you. Alright? Shake hands." Penta and Phoenix shake hands, then begin to make their entrances. We get 74 for this tiny little segment just before heading out to the ring. And in our main event between Pentagon and Rey Fenix in a bout that had great heat and decent wrestling. Pentagon Jr. defeats Rey Fenix in 20 minutes 41 after a top rope Styles clash. I need to change that. It's mad. Every singles match Penta has, that's always his finishing move. That's the sort of finishing move you expect to see at a pay-per-view, not on just your standard Dynamite. A top rope Styles clash, I don't think that's even his finisher anymore, is it? It's more like a package pile driver. I know he does the combination with Rey Fenix when they're teaming together. Or he has the Pentagon driver, I think. So, not sure where the top rope Styles clash is coming from. But anyway, a disappointing main event as we roll into the final segment of the evening. As the match finishes, there is a disturbance in the crowd as Moxley and Omega are seen brawling with Punk and Brody King still. Darby Allin is seen once again up in the rafters watching on. Darby is set to take on Kenny Omega in the semi-finals of that Eliminator tournament. The fight eventually works its way to the ring. Matt and Nick Jackson run down and join in, giving Mox and Omega a helping hand. Punk and King bail out before it's too late. They make their way up the entrance ramp and are then joined by both Anderson and Gallows, who look like they're hurting. This war is not over as the Elite and Mox stare at Culture Shock, who stand together at the top of the entranceway. This week's episode of Dynamite comes to an end. We get an 81 here. Mox's gimmick getting a bit stale. We've had that with JR. We've had it with Dr. Britt Baker. It's not good to see. Hopefully it doesn't affect things too much. Felt we had to have Darby Allin in this segment as well, you know, with that big semi-final between Omega and Darby Allin. The first time they fought one another, it would be something special, I hope, as our show gets a 71, a lot lower than last week's episode, Spring Stampede, but it does advance things nicely, I think, as we are just 2 weeks out now from Blood and Guts, the first time I've done Blood and Guts as well. But there we go, that is it for Dynamite. Let's go ahead and see how we've done up against NXT when it comes to show quality this week. So this week we got 71, we had 7,788 in attendance, scoring a 1.59 TV rating. Over on TNT, we had 861,000 viewers tuning in, and we only had, we had a total of 1.1 million overall due to the lack of broadcasters that we actually have on a Wednesday night. And NXT have scored a 70, so just one below us, which is a great sign. It's always good when we beat NXT on show rate, and it always seems to be most weeks, even though when we underperform, we always seem as though we still beat them. Anyway, that is it for this episode of AEW Dynamite. I'll see you all soon for AEW Dark.